It's July 17th, 2013 at 1 p.m. and we're sitting with Tom Mathers.
Thanks again. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, so just kind of to start off, if you don't mind talking about the beginnings,
Okay.
you're born in Hayden, we can start there.
Yeah, okay. In 1949, March 22nd, I was born in Hayden, Colorado.
Okay.
The reason I was born in Hayden, we lived in Craig, but the reason I was born in Hayden was because that was a year before the hospital was completed in Craig.
Okay.
We lived south of town. We had a ranch that my grandparents homesteaded out in Great Divide, and that was kind of home, and then we moved to town up on Thompson Hill, and that's where we spent most of our life.
Okay.
My mom and dad got divorced when I was probably 6, and so my grandparents raised the whole family.
Oh, okay.
And she would just come visit a couple times a year, but my grandparents actually raised us. With good work ethics. We worked every day.
Oh, okay.
He had 4 acres, and he got us each a hoe, and our job every day was to hoe a certain amount, and by the time we got done, it was time to start all over again.
Constantly working, huh?
Was to keep us out of trouble, I guess.
How many of you were there?
There was 5 of us.
5 of you.
Okay.
Okay.
And but it was great getting raised by your grandparents. Like I say, we worked together every day.
Right.
We always had cows, chickens, pigs. Always had something to take care of. He was pretty strict. We sit down at the dinner table, and he'd say, "Tom, did you water the chickens?" And if I said yes, nobody ate until he ate. I mean, nobody picked a fork up till he was ready to eat after Grace. And he might just push back from the table and walk 2 acres up to where the chickens was at, and if there wasn't water in that trough, I finished my dinner with tears in my eyes after I watered the chickens. He said they depend on you to water them. You know, they don't just get to have a drink whenever they want it. You have to give it to them.
Right.
So anyway, had a good life being brought up like that. The unfortunate bad part was we had to ride the school bus back and forth to school. And when we'd go to, I wanted to play football really bad. And so he told me I could. So I took the physical and passed the physical. And I said, "Okay, Grandpa," I said, "practice is right after school today." I said, "Can you come get me at 6 o'clock?"
Right.
He said, "No." Is that my phone? Hey, I'm in a meeting. Let me call you back. My sister. And so I told him that he'd have to come pick me up, and he said, no, that's not the way it's going to work. You ride the school bus home, do your chores, then you can go to football practice. Well, it was 6 o'clock by the time I got my chores done, so that was the same as saying, you're not going to play football.
Right.
And I just thought that was the meanest thing he ever did to me. Let me think that I was going to play and go to the physical and everything, and then tell me that. But they was old timers. I mean, the work come first. Everything else was a game. So we grew up there. I think the population of Craig then was about 3,600 people.
Wow. Okay.
And my dad had a bar. We basically grew up in that bar. I'd go down at 5 o'clock every morning with my granddad and help him. He called it swamping out the place. He was cleaning it.
Right.
And we'd go down there, and it was fun. Other than the fact, well, I guess we didn't even mind getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. What was it called, the bar?
Mathers Bar.
Mathers. Oh, that makes sense. I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
My dad had it for 20 years, and then actually when my dad says, "Tom," he says, I worked for him for about a year. He says, "You want to buy this place?" And I says, "Well, Dad, I don't know." He said, "Tell you what, I want you to manage it for a year, and then tell me if you want to buy it." And I said, "Okay." So I managed it for a year. After the year went by really quick. He said, "Well, what do you think? Do you want to buy it?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll buy it, Dad, if you answer one question. How'd you ever stay in this bar business for 20 years? And he just kind of smirked and laughed and walked off and giggled to himself. And I've been there almost 44 now.
Wow.
And what he was laughing about was time goes by so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, it isn't very long, really.
Wow.
I mean, 20 years is not very long.
Right.
And so once we took it over, my brother turned 21 right after that. So we bought it as partners. and he got polio when he was 8, so he's only got one good arm, and then the doctors give him a shot in that because walking on crutches, he tore his rotator cuff, so he's just getting steroids put in his arm, and there's one chance in a million that they'd hit a nerve, and they did, shut his whole arm down. And the reason he never got it fixed was because it made him bedridden, you know, because his arms are his legs. And so he spent like 6 months in bed, you know, and even today he exercises every day trying to get strength back in that arm.
Right.
Anyway, it's worked out really good for us. My daughter always says Mike's the brains and I'm the bronze. Because he's perfectly good with sitting there and doing the book work and staying there and cashing checks and doing things like that. And all the other projects I do.
Right.
If he thinks if we want to go build a cabin, he'll sit there and make the material list out, draw the plans up, then I go build it. You know, and then it's ours. So we've had a great partnership all our life.
Right.
Yeah. So and it's kind of unusual because most brothers and sisters don't get along that well.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I have 4 little brothers.
Do you?
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had that bar for probably about 4 years, I guess I had it. And my dad made us a great deal. I think we paid him $400 a month for it. I mean, it was dirt cheap.
Right.
Because he just wanted, between his 2 pensions and what we paid him, he wanted $2,000 a month to retire on.
Right.
And so then they decided they was going to build this power plant. And during that time, well, before they started building the power plant, we used to go to the VFW and dance all the time because they always had bands. And I've seen the amount of people that showed up. So I hired a guy named R.D. Keithley, was a one-man band. He had all his music recorded, and he played his guitar and sang, and pretty much a variety of music, rock and roll, and had quite a following. So I had him hired for probably a year and a half, and just kicked ass. I mean, we did. It was just, we made a lot of money. And then he decided he wanted to expand his band, and he got a bass player, and he was a coal miner, this bass player. And R.D. was actually an electrician. But all of a sudden, the bass player says, "Hey, you guys are making so much money on us, and you're not paying us enough. We want union wages." Well, that just destroyed that band.
Yeah.
Because I hate being threatened more than anything. It's like somebody putting a gun in your ribs.
Right.
And right after that, the boom started at the power plant. There was a Hayden power plant getting built. Then they built Unit 1 here, and then 2 and 3.
Right.
So we got really impacted. Our population went to about 14,000 overnight. There was people sleeping under the bridge. There was people everywhere. If you walked in my bar I got a front bar and a back bar. At 5 o'clock at night, there was standing room only, and that was all night long.
Wow.
Great business. I mean, they was there all the time.
Wow.
Anytime somebody called a bomb threat in, I was packed. Had a lot of fights then. And actually, the police even sent me a letter said, "We are not babysitters. Take care of your own place." And I was in over 70 fights in 1 year, and that was just breaking a fight up. That was if you were sitting there having a drink and somebody was up and was hitting on you and it was bothering you, I'd say, "Hey, you need to leave her alone." And instantly they'd want to fight.
Right.
And I broke my hand twice in 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
But I never lost a fight, and it was because I felt I was always right.
Right.
I was always just trying to keep the peace.
Right.
And if it was somebody going to fight, it didn't matter who, they were going to fight somebody.
What would they fight over?
Anything.
Anything.
In fact, the city was going to shut us down because of all the fights we had. And so we went to the city-type court, you know, where they was prosecuting us. And I told them, I said, let me tell you guys something. If you have iron workers, electricians, insulators, painters, carpenters, mixed in with sheep herders, our local crowd, truck drivers, you can go to Catholic church on a Sunday morning and put all those people in church, you're going to have some problems. And they just didn't get along. There was different facets that just didn't get along.
Right.
And so we always had a problem.
Right. Right.
And but we got through it. And the really big, and of course that really hurt the city of Craig when we got impacted like that, because they had to supply services to these people. And so we had to build a big water plant, big sewage plant, which was bigger than what we needed. There was housing developments going in faster than you could think, using, not the right kind of piping and stuff,
Right.
that 20 years later, the locals that stayed here are paying for because it was inferior to what they should have been putting in the ground.
Right.
And, well, we were so busy then, and we had the ironworkers come in. We was pretty much an ironworkers bar. They came in one day and says, yeah, well, the job's about to quit. We're all leaving tomorrow, which was a Tuesday. And my brother and I both looked at him. The guy that told us was Chuck Wilder, a friend, because we made a lot of friends in that time. We said, give me a break.
Mhm.
What do you mean you're all leaving tomorrow?
Right.
And the next day, at noon, in the bar, there was one local guy sitting,
Mhm.
when there would have been 50.
Right.
They did. They left, and that's the problem with the boom and bust. Because if you get a boom and it's work orientated, when that job's done, everybody leaves.
Right.
You know, we had a few that stuck around and made this their home because they liked it here,
Mhm.
but most everybody left.
Wow.
And we had meetings before the boom happened, and we knew it was going to happen. We had meetings at the city, and we talked about what can we do different. And we use Rock Springs as an example. What can we do from going into this boom and going into a bust? It's impossible. It's just impossible. You're going to go into a bust when all those people leave.
Right. Right.
There's no easy way out unless it's manufactured enough jobs and businesses. But most of the businesses rely on that amount of people to survive.
Right.
So, and if I could pick my bar up and put it on skids, I'd have went right with them over to Rush. That was their next job,
Yeah.
and done fine.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the roots were here, and so you're stuck.
Mhm. So business,
Business went to pot. Yeah, it
Wow.
was real.
literally overnight.
Yeah, literally overnight.
Wow.
It just, and so we still have a big infrastructure, bigger than what we have on our. I think our population right now is about 11,000 in town and 13,000 countywide.
Mhm.
That's kind of where we're at today.
Mhm. Mhm.
There was a time years ago in '83 and '84. We noticed that deer and elk was dying quite a bit because it was really a hard winter.
Oh, really?
And so I put a program together and got everybody involved in it,
Mhm.
and we did a feeding. I had a dance at the bar, and it would cost you either a $5 donation or a bale of hay.
Oh,
And it
right.
was called Help Feed the Wildlife.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, a radio station, Paul Day out of Channel 4 News in Denver, called me up and says, Tom, tell me what's going on there. And I said, the deer and elk are dying like flies.
Mhm.
He said, if I fly up there, can you show me some dead animals? I said, we can go right to the golf course and I'll show you a whole bunch of elk that are dead out there.
Mhm.
So he flew in, we went out to the golf course, he took pictures, and of course it went on the Denver news, but then all of a sudden it went on the national news.
Really?
Yeah, and I think they sent me close to $80,000, some really heartwarming letters.
Wow.
Kids would take a collection up at school of pennies and nickels and dimes to help feed the wildlife. So we took all that money, and there was a hay shortage, but we managed to get hay from everywhere.
Right.
We took different organizations, like the mayor had one feed grounds over here, the Kiwanis Club would have a feed ground over here, so every day we stacked all our hay down at Fleischle Oil Company. So every day they'd go down and load up their trucks with hay and pellets and go out and feed the deer and the elk. And it's just like feeding a herd of cattle. They'd run right up to your pickup, try eating it out of your hand.
They were that
They
hungry.
was that hungry.
So they
we're
were
still
starving to death.
starving to death. And it got 40 below. In fact, I think there was a picture somewhere of a deer down by Maybell that was 40 below zero, standing out in the field, standing, dead, froze to death. Just froze to death standing.
Wow.
You'd go up in 4 Mile underneath all the little cedar trees,
Right.
and there'd be like 4 deer stacked on top of each other, where they'd lay on each other to try to get warm
Right.
and all die. It was a sad deal.
Wow.
So when March finally came through, and we lost a lot of deer, even feeding them, And my theory was if they're gonna die, they can die with a full stomach.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure quite a few of them got compaction because they had nothing to eat for so long, then when they started eating hay, it
Eating so
compacted
much.
up because they didn't have it was too much all at once.
Mhm.
And, so anyway, People Magazine wanted to come and interview me. And so they did, and of course I took them to all the different people that fed. And it was more about me than them. I didn't realize that. But
Right.
because it was really a joint effort of everybody helping. And it was kind of exciting because at the end of March I said, man, I mean, I went in the hospital the first 4 days after it started because I felt like I was having a heart attack. My phone rang 24 hours a day. We had people from California saying, I've got 8 cargo airplanes. I'll be glad to fly in and drop hay wherever you need it.
Wow.
I mean, from all over the country.
Mhm.
But what it wasn't a heart attack. What it was I was up so long fielding these phone calls and trying to get things going that I OD'd on coffee.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Too much caffeine in your
Too
body.
much caffeine, yeah.
Wow.
And so anyway, I got over that, and we fed the animals, and then my wife and I went to Las Vegas about the end of March just to get away,
Yeah.
and we went to this hotel. It was the Mint, not the Mint, the Union Plaza.
Union Plaza.
And we was up having dinner up in the upstairs room, and this maitre d' or whatever came in and said, folks, I need all your attention. I need your attention. He says, we have a celebrity with us tonight. And of course I'm looking for Robert Redford. and he says, we have Tom Mathers here, who fed the deer and the elk, tried to keep them from starving to death. If you want to go down in the Shoeshine area, People Magazine has an article on it today. And
Wow.
so it was quite a highlight in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I fought with the Division of Wildlife. They did not want that happening. They said, it's nature's way of thinning out the weakest.
Right.
But they were dying, and hunting is a big part of our economy here.
Yeah.
And so, and because of that, I got elected county commissioner probably in 1988
Okay.
to 1992, and I never got reelected.
Mhm.
And then I got elected again in 2004, no, 2006. In 2006.
2006.
And everybody said, why'd you come back and get reelected? I said, well, everybody, it was a long enough term in between when I was a commissioner and when I run again, that people forgot why they didn't elect me the second time.
How long
But-
were you there for the second time?
Well, I'm still there.
Still there?
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, this is I've got about a year and a half left on my term. Then I'll
Okay.
be term limited. It'll be 8 more years.
Right.
Yeah. And now there's going to be an initiative on the ballot that says, should county commissioners, should we do away with the 2-year or the 2-term limit, the 8 years, and go 3 terms, which would be 12 years.
Mhm.
And I really hope it doesn't pass, because I don't want to do it again. But if I had that opportunity, I probably would.
Yeah.
Because hell, if I run again, I'd be 70 years old by the time I got out of office.
Right, right.
And I've got a ranch that needs so much work done to it, and just don't have the time.
Right.
County's busy anymore.
Right.
It's just always something.
Right.
We fight and fight and fight. And I told them at the county, I told my 2 cohorts, I said, I've been a commissioner now for 10 years. I said, I have never lost a fight in my bar.
Mhm.
I've never won a fight at the county level. Because we fight things that are just too big. It's
Like what?
like the rules and regulations on oil and gas drilling, wilderness areas that have potentially a lot of gas in them, stuff that spurs our economy, the coal, especially the coal, because there's a big push to do away with coal.
Right.
I went and testified on Senate Bill 252, it's been a month ago.
That
Yeah.
state senate bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
They wanted to put, instead of the 10% green energy that Ritter put in,
Right.
they wanted to up it to 20%.
Right.
Or 30%.
Right.
No, 20%. 30%. They wanted to go up another 20%.
Mhm.
Which is feasibly impossible. It's impossible for us to do that, because this was a Clean Energy Act of Colorado, and all the green energy was supposed to be created in Colorado to create jobs. It was a Jobs Act.
Right.
But we don't have the wind here for solar or for wind stuff. Solar, I see in the paper today where they're gonna put a 5-acre solar farm in here to try to make up some of the differences. I told them in Denver, see, it's all about the Front Range and the smog in Denver. And I pleaded with them, I said, why don't you people come to Moffat County, to Craig, and look at our power plant? There's blue sky all day long around that. We're not your problem. Your problem is automobiles. I'll bet 2,500 people a month in the Denver area turn 16 and get a car. And you know that because they're constantly making their roads bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's because they've got more and more traffic. And those cars is what makes the brown cloud. And it's not us, but it's really easy to pick a little power plant out and say we're hitting them and we're cleaning up our air.
Right.
When the problem is their automobiles, and they just won't do it. It's too big of a problem. I mean, how do you do that? How do you go out and take 1 million cars and say you're polluting us? We're going to make you quit driving. I mean, you can't do that. So it's a huge problem, but that's where they ought to be doing their focusing instead of these little tiny power plants.
Right.
We've got the cleanest coal burning power plant in the country. I mean, we're putting a $4 million scrubber deal on, or $40 million scrubber deal on it, because that's what the environmentalists, through another bill that went through that was a backdoor thing, 1365. That was all done in the back room. The wheels were greased. We didn't even have a chance to get to Denver before it passed. And that was the 10% to start with, and changing all the coal-fired plants over on the Front Range to natural gas. And I sat on the brown cloud study in Denver years ago when I was first commissioner with Romer, and basically proved that coal and gas do the same things with the brown cloud.
Right.
Because the coal, you can see the brown cloud right away if you haven't got a bunch of cleaning devices on it. You see the brown cloud right away. With gas, it's clean, but once it goes up the Front Range, up around Greeley and up in that area, because they have an inversion there, it picks up all. It's still got the same particles in it. You just can't see them, but it'll pick up all the dust particles. Then when it comes back down the range, it's a big brown cloud again. And they proved that, but it's politics. It's politics.
Right.
The gas has more push than the coal does.
Right.
And we basically, because of our 20-mile coal plant, Trapper Mine, our coal plant that Trapper Mine that the power plant just bought, coal miners put kids in school, they buy homes, they buy boats, cars, they make good money. They're a real asset to our community.
Right.
Natural gas, once you put the pipelines in, you've got a boom going through those pipelines to get it to the power plant, but then there's no jobs. There's 1 or 2 jobs, somebody running the pipeline, making sure it's not froze up and taking care of it. But the majority of the jobs are gone. The coal mining jobs are all gone. Coal is really important to our economy here, and they don't care. They just don't care.
Wow. So you've been fighting that the entire time?
Almost forever. It's always been an issue.
Right.
AGNC is an organization we belong to. It's Associated Governments of Northwest Colorado, which is Routt, Moffat, Rio Blanco, Garfield, and Mesa County. It was designed to support the coal industry to start with, because everybody realized what kind of jobs we had here. We've got a college which everybody's really tickled about. The first time it was going to come, it was the main college that went over to Rifle, but the business people basically voted that down because they only saw one side of it. And I remember my dad talking about it. The one side that they presented to them was their taxes were going to go up $800 a year, and back then that was a pretty good chunk of money.
Right.
And they said, for a college, no, we don't need that.
So small businesses ran against the college?
Yes, but what was never told was, hey, some of these college kids are 21 years old. They've got their dad's credit card. They're going to buy groceries. They're going to buy clothes. They're going to come down to your bar and drink every day. They're going to go to the hotel or the restaurants and buy food. They didn't see that side of it, so they voted it down. So now when they put this college we have out here now, which is just a associate to the college.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the classes they have out there, they have some good classes, but they're not accreditable classes.
Oh.
So you can take an automotive class out there and graduate out of it, but the best job you can have is changing oil or changing tires, because it's not an accreditable course to where you can show a degree and say, you know, I know how to do this, but I don't have a degree that says I can do this.
Right.
So, so we struggle. I mean, Craig struggled. We've been boom bust scenario our whole life.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been energy jobs that come to town that keep our town growing, or
Right.
alive, not growing. In fact, it's going the other way right now, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And, and then some of the, you know, you got to appreciate the city council for trying to make Craig a pretty place, but, what store was coming to town? Well, I know one thing, we voted down, they wanted to bring, what's that big mall of nothing but shops?
Like a Westfield?
No, there's one in, Silverthorne.
Oh, like an outlet?
Yeah,
An outlet.
Outlet stores. There was a company that wanted to bring outlet stores to Craig, and everybody, all the businesses screamed and hollered about the competition would put them out of business. But what they should have known was, hey, you put that kind of stores here in Craig, it's going to become a shopping hub. You go to those stores and see what they don't sell, and that's what you sell in your quaint little stores downtown.
Right.
You know, and it's a win-win for both sides. But it's just, we've been our own worst enemies so many times. The interstate was going to come through Craig when they first built it,
Right.
and it was scheduled to come through Craig, and then all the ski towns lobbied against it and said, no, the correct way is that the interstate come through all the ski towns, and so that's what happened.
Was
you know.
Steamboat not a ski town at that point?
Oh, it was, but they wasn't a big one like the big guys was up on by Silverthorne. They got 4 major resorts right there,
Right.
and so it come through there, down through Beaver Creek, and into Glenwood Springs,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that did make more sense, but that hurt Craig's population too.
Yeah,
Because
that traffic wasn't
well, it's not just the traffic, but it's the how do you have a business, any kind of a manufacturing business there, because you have no outlet to get it out of here.
Oh, right.
You know, if you had an interstate right next to, run right by Craig, then it'd be real easy. You'd have a truck stop, and you'd have truckers come in, load up the goods, and haul them right out.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just a little 2-lane road for a lot of miles over the mountains. Just makes it unfeasible to have any kind of a business like that.
Right. Right. Wow. Wow. Okay. What are some current issues that you're kind of facing right now as the county commissioner?
Current issues, there's still...
If you're allowed to discuss them.
There's still too many WSAs, which is Wilderness Study Areas.
Wilderness study area.
And that's a piece of ground that the BLM nominates for wilderness, has wilderness characteristics. So, but they put it as a wilderness study area just to study it.
Mm-hmm.
But some of these have been on there for 30 years. You know, so either study it and make a wilderness, because they're treated the same as a wilderness. You can't
hunt.
you can't do anything with them. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
you can hunt, but you've got to walk into it or take a horse into it.
Mm-hmm.
No 4-wheelers. No. You know, what really bothers me, because I think of guys like my brother that would like to go to the wilderness area just to go out and look at it,
Mm-hmm.
and he can't do it
Yeah.
because there's no way getting in there.
Right.
And I've offered to him. I said, you know, we'll support this wilderness area. The county will, instead of fighting on it. But why don't you just make a cherry stem up into this wilderness with a campground, and then come back down, just a road wide,
Mm-hmm.
just so people can go up and get in the middle of this wilderness and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that just falls on deaf ears.
Mm-hmm.
The BLM has really changed their, and that comes through the administration. You know, it's wanting to tie more and more ground up, when personally I think the government ought to be getting rid of government ground and putting it in free enterprise, because then they get taxes off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it was supposed to be in the Constitution years ago. Was, you know, government has all this ground, but they're supposed to dispose of it as soon as they can and put it back into private ownership to where they get a revenue off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they don't do that. But anyway, these wilderness study areas, they need to shit or get off the pot, basically. They need to say, yes, this is a wilderness area, we're going to make it a wilderness area, or no, this doesn't have everything that it needs to be a wilderness area. Let's put it back to where people can enjoy it, instead of just tying it up. That's one of the big problems we face. We fight all the time. Roads is always a problem. There's always somebody that says that they think they've got a county road and it needs maintained, but on the books it's not.
Right.
And
A lot of roads out here.
yeah. And the main thing is we're pushing for the oil and gas industry to make a field here. I mean, that would save everybody in Craig. That would bring dollars to Craig. And it's like everything. It's all about dollars.
Right.
And I worked in the oil fields for 3 years when I was in my last part of high school and when I first got out. And it was nasty. We'd have a mud pit there. We'd throw buckets. We'd throw wrenches. It was broke. We'd throw everything in a mud pit, drive off and leave it. I mean, that's the way it was. That's why they got such a bad name. But if you go out today it might cost, if somebody spilt a quart of oil on the pad, the location, which is all gravel, if they spilt that today, it might cost them $8,000 to clean that up. Because they've got a pump truck that travels all the way everywhere. It's like a vacuum truck. So they come out there dressed in white. They determine where the area is. They put a screen on it to where it doesn't suck up any rocks. Then they shoot water into it, vacuum it, till the oil actually releases and comes to the top of water.
Right.
And they'll do that a dozen times until there's no more oil coming out of that spot. So they've really changed the way they do things. And it's like, we just bought a motel out here, and I had two ladies from Boston, Massachusetts, come out, and I knew they was green as gold, just to hear them talking, and they was concerned with the gun laws and all this stuff, and so we tried to explain them the difference between an automatic and AR-15, and whether it be an automatic or semi-automatic. They had no clue. They just figured the AR-15, you just pull the trigger and it just, like a machine gun. And it's not. You've got to pull the trigger every time to make it go off. No different than a hunting rifle, an automatic hunting rifle. You got to pull the trigger every time. And anyway, we had quite the disagreements, but it was fun. I mean, we give them a glass of wine and we sat there and talked about everything. And this one gal finally says, "Well, you've really enlightened us on a lot of things." And I said, "But one thing I just never will accept is strip mining." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "It destroys the ground." And I said, "Now, before you go any further, I want you to look at something. See that big hole over there? They're strip mining at right now." And I said, "From there all the way across, as far as you can see, you see all those grass fields and the dark spots up on top are groves of trees that they planted, and there's water holes there that wasn't there before. It's all been planted back in native grasses." I said, "That was all strip mined." She couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe it. Because in their world, strip mining was they just dug holes and left the earth destroyed.
Right.
So we do take care of the stuff we do.
Isn't that a law now? That once you leave
sure
the
it is.
site, you have to
Yeah,
you have to go
reclaim
back
it.
and reclaim it and reclaim
You
it.
can, and you usually reclaim it better than what it was.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And it's all the same native plants and everything that was taken out. That's
Yeah.
what's put back in.
Yeah, and it's just like the dark tree lines that you see up on top of this divide. Those are all scrub oak, but they're not old dying scrub oak. They're all brand new scrub oak. That's probably as tall as the ceiling is right now.
Right.
Healthy. It's beautiful.
Right.
It's beautiful.
Right.
And the elk and deer in the wintertime live on that whole area back there. And it's so it's not what people hear about.
Right.
It's not the negative. And some environmentalists, you show, it's like fracking. When they frack, they literally drill that hole down into the formation where they're at, where the oil is, which right around here it's like 8,000 foot.
Yeah.
Then they've got part of it double cased, then they concrete it all the way down, even into the layer where they frack. Then they go in there, and when they frack, it shoots just into that layer, and there's no way for that to... An oil company doesn't want his oil coming up and getting mixed with groundwater because they're losing oil. It brings all the product up, and fracking, coal miners have fracked for years. That's when they break the coal and shoot it to break it up. Rock quarries have been fracking forever, and they don't frack the groundwater. They frack the rock that they're trying to get out of there. So it's such a wrong perception, but some of them just won't listen. They got their mind made up, and no matter what you tell them, you can't show them. And we have environmentalists come in the office that's all against gas and oil, and most of them are trust fund babies anyway, and they probably, in their account, they probably got a ton of oil and gas dollars coming their way, but they drive there in a brand new car, they got tennis shoes on, and you think, those are all oil products. You know, yet you're so against it. You know, in the same way with their energy. It makes you want to say, well, if you don't like coal energy, you know, from the power plant, why don't you just turn your energy off and not use it? If you believe in it that much, turn it off. But you go to their house, their air conditioner's going full blast, or their heater's on, or whatever. So they're hypocrites. They're against it, but yet they still use all the products of it.
Right.
So that's just some of the issues we face on a day-by-day basis that
Yeah.
never go away.
Right, right.
You know, we basically fight all the new change, because all the new change comes with a price tag. Unfunded mandates we're totally against, and they just love doing that to us, because then we have to spend our taxpayers' dollars to do something that, an example, I think somebody over on the Front Range was in a landfill, and they had some tires stacked up and fell and maybe hurt one of them. So now, because we're regulated by the state on our landfill, we have to put a 6-foot fence around our tires. I mean, it's the one bad apple syndrome, to where if it happens somewhere else, it could happen, let's protect it. When that person probably wasn't supposed to be next to the tires to start with. And it's, so now we have to put a fence up, and we have to lock the gates, and we have to open the gates when we bring tires in, and it's crazy.
Right.
So, it's just, it's just unfortunate that everybody in Washington D.C., and then what they don't decide on comes to Colorado, the Denver area, and they decide how we need to do business on the West Slope. And we've talked about seceding for years, like the three counties have tried to do.
I just read that the other day.
And that'll never happen, because the legislature has to approve that, and they're not going to do that.
Right.
I mean, that's revenue. That's oil and gas revenue in those areas are huge. And it was probably more of making a statement. And for years, we've been talking about seceding, but we've never come public with it, because we know that Northwest Colorado wouldn't have a problem doing that. But how do you do that and leave out some of these counties on the eastern side of the state that face the same problems we do? And so in order to do that, you have to make almost like a horseshoe to go around. And if I could have got the other counties to go along with this seceding, I would have gone to the governor and said, you know what, we want to secede because you're a mayor of Denver, you're not a governor of Colorado, but because of everybody that wants to secede, Governor, it'd be easier if you just moved the east slope out of Colorado. So why don't you just do that instead of making us make this stupid boundary? You know, and nobody wants to be out of Colorado, but we just want them to stop with the stupid things like the gun regulations.
What is the gun regulation?
Well, the gun regulations now is no clip should hold over 15 shells. It was a knee-jerk reaction from the governor after that shooting they had over on the Front Range.
In Aurora?
Yeah, he had to do something. I think personally what he should have done, he should have said, folks, I'm not going to pick winners and losers. Yes, it was unfortunate, and I'm sorry about all the people that got killed in this, but it wasn't the gun, it was the person. Now, if I have to pick winners and losers, there's more people killed with hammers in Colorado every year than there is with guns. And knives equal that, and please don't let them even go into the automobiles, because the automobiles kill more than anybody. And that's a weapon, because if you get in a car and you don't drive it safely, you've got a weapon that you're in charge of killing somebody. So, it was a knee-jerk reaction. He just felt like he had to do something. And, of course, all our sheriffs and most of the state have opposed that, because they said it's unenforceable, because 30-round clips aren't unusual. A lot of people have them. And there's no date on the clips, so if you've already have them, they're grandfathered in, and there's no way to tell if that's an old clip or a new clip. So it's kind of unenforceable. And so the sheriffs have really been, and we've had we just got a letter from a guy that comes out here hunting at Sherman Youth Camp, a park we have up on the mountain,
Uh-huh.
that the county has. And he wrote us a letter and he says, I'm sorry, he said, we've all drawn permits, but we will not be coming to Colorado to hunt this year. He said, because of your gun laws and your administration, the way Colorado's going, says we don't want to be a part of it. So, and then that one big firearms company moved out of Denver, you know, right away.
Mhm.
You know, and that was a company that dealt, you know, nationwide.
Mhm.
And so, you know, for every action, there's a reaction. You think you're doing something right, but you do it too quick. And then you find out all these things that you should have looked at first.
Mhm.
And he should have just said, I really think he should have said, I'm not going to pick winners and losers. Maybe we're going to do a little more background checks or make it better on the background checks. But, you know, and we go through all the bills every Tuesday when they're in Senate. We have some lobbyists there. And right after that, I'll bet there was, I think it was about 13 new gun bills that was proposed.
When was that?
That was this last session.
13.
Yeah, new gun bills. A lot of them didn't make it, some of them did make it.
Wow. That's really interesting.
But my problem is, it opened the door. Now, every session, there'll be more laws on guns. And guns don't kill people, people kill people. I mean, if you got mad at her, you couldn't find a gun, you'd take your pen and jab it through the throat. I mean, if you wanted to kill somebody, there's a lot of ways of doing it. And half the quacks that go out there and buy a gun, you know, pistols, I don't know how many people can hit that car out here with a pistol,
Mhm.
you know, because they're not accurate at all. They're accurate from me to you, and that's about it. So, anyway, ranting and raving there.
No, it's interesting. I mean, these are the issues that have really kind of built up around Craig. That's really good you're speaking
And that really affects our hunting.
Right,
I
and
mean,
that was the next thing I wanted to ask you about is how have you seen hunting really? I don't know a word other than develop. How has hunting progressed since you've come here?
Well, hunting, when I first took the bar over, hunting got us through the winter.
Hunting.
We was busy enough through the hunting season that we'd save enough money, we'd get through the winter, because winter, nothing would happen. You know, if you had two people in the bar, you had somebody.
Mm.
But that's what it took to get through. We used to have a 10-day deer season, a 10-day elk season, and a 10-day combined season, which was really good for business because people could come to town. We always had a free dinner where we cooked up 4 deer and 8 antelope, a free feed for all the hunters.
Oh, wow.
And it was good for business, and that was always on a Sunday, the day after the season started. And because it was a 10-day season, they could give up a day or two and come to town and have fun. They could buy tags over the counter, so all the motels was filled. And that all went away with this change of the structure of hunting seasons. Now hunting season, instead of the 10-10-10, it's a 5-day season, a 12-day season, a 7-day season, a late season. You've got an early elk season. Anyway, it goes longer, but it gets now to where private properties can get permits if they hunt on that property. So most people that come out here hunting, when they get here, if it's a 5-day season, they bring their groceries with them usually, especially if they're from the Front Range, pull their camper, go out and set up, hunt for 5 days. They don't come to town. The ones that hunt with the outfitters, they come in. The outfitter picks them up at the airport, takes them up to hunting camp, wine and dine them, they kill their elk, go back to the airplane, they never come to town. So town doesn't reap the benefits of what hunting season used to do. And so, and it's hard to get a tag anymore. You know, I lease my ranch out for hunting, and my second season hunters call me up and says, and I've had them for 3 years, and I've had another group for about 12 years now, said, Tom, none of us got drawn. And so here I am, not an outfitter, but I lease my place. I can't double book it, because then if they both draw tags, then I don't have room for them.
Right.
But, so I book it to just one bunch. When I don't receive a tag, now I've got a small window to try to find somebody
Who
to come
does
out and
all
rent
that.
that second season.
Right.
You know, so, and that's what pays for my ranch. And so now I'm in a bind on that. I still don't have anybody. So hunting doesn't do for us what it used to.
Right.
Because it used to be, during hunting season, it was a sea of orange downtown.
Mhm.
Any place you walk into, solid orange from hunters.
Mhm.
Now, you're lucky to see one or two in town. It's just quite a change.
Right. That's
And it's gotten more expensive, you know, and because of this recession we went through, a lot of people said, well, you know, one thing I'm going to have to give up is hunting this year.
mhm.
But there's been quite a few people say that they wouldn't come because of our gun laws. They just take real offense to that. Now, my son-in-law, even after that happened, my son-in-law sent me he's from Oklahoma, he sent me an email or a text and says, why in the hell are you still in Colorado? You know, why are you in that state?
Mhm. Wow.
So,
That's really interesting. So how do you feel about Craig currently, the current state of Craig? Economically or its people?
currently right now with the gas and oil exploration still going, I've got a meeting with Shell at 3 o'clock.
Mhm.
And they'll give us an update. Of course, Shell can't tell us a lot. I hear more at the bar from people working out there than what Shell can tell me,
Mhm.
because they're so structured. They've got such a staff that nobody knows the right answer.
Mhm.
They even told me, they said, we can't tell you a lot of things because we're a stock-driven company, and that'd be like insider trading.
Mhm.
Which I totally understand. But then they come right back and said something really stupid. They built a pad and are doing 6 wells on it. And I said, well, how'd that first well do? And they said, oh, we haven't tested it yet. We won't test it until all 6 are done. And I thought, if I was on the board, you never drill 1 well. I mean, if it makes a well, then you drill 6 more or
Mhm.
5 more.
Right.
But you don't drill 6 and say, oh, I guess there's all dry holes.
Mhm.
You know, because it's cost $1 million a well that they drill.
Right.
You know, and if I was a stockholder, I'd say, you are absolutely idiot. I mean, once you find oil, then you drill a bunch of wells.
Mhm.
You don't just drill.
Yeah.
So they don't know. I mean, these are just their reps that they have, their community reps and stuff like that. So they don't really know what's going on, and they're not told what's going on.
Right.
But they ought to tell them the truth a little bit. And that's one problem I've had with Shell is they're not very truthful.
Mhm.
They tell you things, and you know it's not true.
Right.
And it even got to where when we have these meetings, we'll sit down and the project manager, Matt Holman, sits down and says, well, Tom, what have you got to tell us? You know more about what's going on here than we do. And it's true, because I talk to the guys that are out there that's getting their feet dirty and see oil coming out of the ground, you know, and say, or doing the test and know that they got a really good test
Mhm.
or whatever.
Mhm.
And they're not supposed to tell you, but they, you know, you get a couple drinks in them, they loosen up a little bit.
Right. Right. Interesting.
So, and as far as the economy, Craig, right now, even with that going on, we're struggling right now.
Mhm.
We're not busy, not like we should be.
Right.
It seems like in the oil companies, where they're out there, they have a company come in that builds the locations. But
Right.
Shell's only built one this year, so that company's not doing a lot of work.
Mhm.
When they're drilling the hole, they put all of the people that work, the drillers and the floor hands and the derrick people, everybody that has to do with the drilling,
Mhm.
they stay right on location. And
Oh,
so they
right.
work for like, I think 11 days on, and they get 11 days off, I think, and they work 12-hour shifts.
Wow.
So once they finish their shift, they go back home.
Right.
So they haven't bought a motel room, they haven't bought a drink out of a bar, they haven't bought any clothes, they haven't bought anything, groceries from they'll buy groceries from the store, but they won't buy, like in a restaurant.
Right.
So we don't see any of those dollars. We do see some dollars from the companies that work for them, that are a sub to them,
Mhm.
because they stay in town and they'll stay in the motels. So we see some dollars there. And right now, Shell's just in exploratory stage is what they tell you, and there's two reasons for that. One is it's cheaper tax-wise to be in an exploratory stage, and they probably put, I'm saying $100,000 a year into the community, you know, for different grants and different things to help the community out. Once they decide and say, yeah, we'll make a field out of it, then that goes up to about $3 million a year that they'll put into the community. And plus they pay higher taxes once they've said, yes, we're gonna develop this area.
Right.
And what really spurs the economy in Craig is when they do a pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
A pipeline is, because you got all these guys and they work during the day and they stay in town, then they have the nights to go out and they stay in a motel and they go out and have dinner somewhere and they'll go out and have a couple drinks and so we see a lot more. It's basically all energy that keeps us going.
Right.
It's so no, we're not where we need to be. We're still in a recession era.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
But through the years, if the East Coast and the West Coast is in a recession and they're not doing well, we're doing well here in Moffat County.
Really?
So when they start rebounding on those two, we're usually we're the last to go into a recession and the last to come out of it. That's just like new alcohol drinks. You know, if they make a new alcohol, all the bars in California or in New York will have that brand they sell, and it takes about a year before our distributors ever get it to us to be able to buy it.
Right.
Just slowly works its way in.
Interesting. Last in recession and last out. That's fascinating. All right.
But I had an old man, Huck White. When I was young, growing up, he was one of the guys coming in and homesteaded, and he was just an old philosopher. And he'd say, Tom, I've seen people go from rags to riches in Moffat County every 25 years. And he says it's peaks and valleys.
Right.
Everybody does good. When it rains, everybody gets wet, and then it goes to nothing.
Wow.
And then it goes back up. It's just a cycle.
So where would you say Craig is at in the cycle then?
Cycle time.
If it was a measurable cycle then?
I'd say we're 2/3 of the way back to the top.
Okay. Interesting.
It's like anything. When I say 2/3, that sounds like we're almost there. But you always got your nut to cut. If you're in business, you got your nut to cut. Your bills, you've got to pay every month. And 2/3 just about pays the bills. And then it takes that extra third to get to the top before you really start making any money.
Right. Right.
So,
That's interesting. Thank you.
well, okay.
That was really good.
Okay. Good.